my primary medium is watercolor. And I've always been fascinated by it. It's very demanding. I took it up, frankly, because I thought it would be easy. And I took it up probably now almost 20 years ago. My background was not as a professional artist. I had a completely different background in public relations and corporate communications in New York City. But about 20 years ago, I really felt the urge to express myself visually. And I thought, well, watercolor, kids do it. It can't be that hard. It is. But I persevered, and it still is hard because the nature of it is you're dealing with water. It moves around, it wants to blend, it wants to dissolve, it wants to do all kinds of things. My work, I think, ends up looking loose and free, but it's hard to do. It's hard to make it that way. What I like the most about watercolor is the beautiful translucency of the colors. And that's what I want to convey, and I think you'll see that in a lot of my work. I like to layer it and show that there's more than meets the eye from the beginning. I've become more and more fascinated about the layers that exist in life. There's what we see, and there's what's behind it, and then there's what's behind that, and so on. And I think watercolor allows me to visually explore that. I like to plan, and you can look around in my studio even, you see it's fairly orderly. I like grids. You'll see grids. I like that, but at the same time I like to not know exactly what's going to happen, and that's useful in watercolor you might set out with a plan, but you may not achieve it. So then you have a couple of choices. Do you say, okay, then let me stop, let me revise my plan and find a new way forward, or just say, well, what the heck? Lately, in the past few years, I've been much more apt to say, oh, well, what the heck, let me go with that. Whereas before I would have put the piece aside, started all over, tried very hard to attain my original objective. And I think I've gotten freer as time has gone on. And that has to do with life events that, make you either close up or free. And I'm trying for the freedom.
For other artists, if you had any advice, what would it be to them?
You've got to find your truth and your core. Do what you want to do. That's first of all. Don't do something that somebody else wants you to do or the way they want you to do it. And know your materials. Know what you're working with. You just have to. You have to be smart about the technical aspects of your paint, your brushes, your paper. In watercolor, paper is so important. Be generous with yourself with materials, and at the same time, I'm going to say, I know that they're expensive. It's a really tough thing. I remember when I was first taking my community college, the first watercolor class, I'd go to the store and find out what a piece of really good watercolor paper costs. Kind of expensive. So your tendency is to buy one piece and then use it really small or be very... This teacher I had said, look, save up some money and go buy 10 sheets of paper. And when I say expensive, a good big sheet of watercolor paper can cost $8, $10. So you're very cognizant, you're working on that, right? She said, save up your money, go buy 10 sheets of paper. Wow, I'm gonna spend $80 on this paper? Yeah. But all of a sudden you have the paper. Oh, well, I bought it, I may as well use it, And that's kind of what happened with me. This teacher always insisted we used very, very good paint. She would not let us use the stuff that you can buy that's called student grade. Makes a difference, because that, I think, is how I get, why I'm so attuned to the clarity of the colors. So yourself, your materials, and then why are you making your art? Is it a hobby? And I can put that in air quotes. A lot of people use hobby as a pejorative word, like it's, oh, that's only a hobby. And there's nothing wrong with hobbies. Hobbies are things that interest you, that you want to spend time at, and you want to devote some of your resources to. Are you doing it to make some money? Are you doing it for recognition, for adulation? All those things, I think, that is related to why are you doing it, but you have to be kind of hard-hearted to look at it. It's very, very, very hard to make a living as an artist, any kind of an artist. And of course, there's lots to art. There's graphic design. I mean, corporations are full of graphic designers. That's a good way to make a living as an artist. Art teacher, art professor, etc. But then you also have to factor in how much education you need to get to those positions. But if you're just doing it like I have always, which is just for the joy of it and the expression, I consider myself very fortunate. I've sold some paintings and it feels really nice. Then I go and buy more paper or paint with that. But I've never had to rely on that. You got to look at other people's art. Look what other people are doing and be generous. You yourself know how fragile it is to be an artist. When you go see someone else's work, find the good thing. It's like in art class when you're having a critique. Critique is not, let's criticize that painting. A critique is, okay, what works? What might not work? How could you improve it? When I came to Aurora, which was in the middle of 2014, and was fortunate enough to land in a place where there was an art show, a community art show every summer, and could take part in it, and then I chaired it for 3 years. What I was always cognizant of was that many of these people, it's the first time they had ever shown their work in public, and I wanted them to be comfortable. I wanted them to know that the art show was a good, safe place for them. And I do think that was achieved. And that made me feel happy, and that was part of the genesis for the art gallery that I ran here for a couple of years, is for many people it was their first tentative steps into, and when you hang your painting on a wall somewhere else and then go away, it's like a little part of you is there.
What are some ways that communities can support artists?
I think one way is for communities to think about what they look like. And for example, I am thinking of Canby right now. When I moved here in the middle of 2014, it was evident to me that there was public art going on in Canby. Now I moved from San Francisco, which has art all over the surfeit of art almost. But I come up here to a place that looks very different to me than San Francisco did, but I immediately saw public art. And that has only increased in the 4 years that I've been here. So I think that's one way. Support artists, buy original art. Do not buy giclées and copies. That was my mantra at the gallery. Support an artist. Know that what you're buying, the hand of the artist touched it. Go to the museums, go to galleries. Galleries, they don't charge admission. They're not going to ask you how smart you are about Picasso's blue movement versus blue period versus something else. Go and look and keep your eyes open. You hear about communities that get revitalized. Boutiques come in and wine bars and all that, and then along with it somehow comes art. I'm not quite sure how that happens. I'm really not. Maybe it is that the wine bar becomes a friendly place to show art. Like what we have here with the White Rabbit. There's always an art show going on there. I think a lot of it does have to do with friendliness and openness. I think very closed up communities they just don't feel like they'd be good for art. When I came to Aurora, not just my experience of viewing Canby, when I first moved here, I could just feel that there's stuff going on here all the time by people who really don't care whether their name is known. They are driven to make their art. And somehow I feel that as kind of an undercurrent here, and I have felt it from the beginning. And the more people I've gotten to know here, I'm just like amazed at the interesting stuff that goes on here.
Where do you see your art going in the future?
Wow, that's a really tough one because, certainly over the past couple of years, there's been, my parents died in the past couple of years. There was great illness, other troubles. My art has changed. I didn't set out to change it, but it's a way for me to certainly get healing. an understanding of the world and what lies beyond. I have a great belief of where my parents are. I know they're with God. I want to kind of try and plumb those depths. So if you ask where's my art going, more of that. But how, I don't know, because I've also become much more interested in three-dimensional work, of putting mostly found things together, found natural objects. I took up macrame after a 40-year, not having ever done it, because there's something about the knotting and the making of these intricate skeins of material that feels good to me. So I don't know where it's going. I don't think I'll become an oil painter or an acrylic painter, but I think I will broaden to say, okay, I want to express something. What tools do I have at hand? I think I would like that whatever I do, that people would look at it and say, oh my goodness, that just brought me some knowledge I didn't have, or brought me to a place that was unfamiliar to me. If somebody comes away saying, wow, I understand a bit more about myself, about why people spend their time doing this, and that'd be good for me.